Let's play a math game.
Today I'm going to create a math game. In this game, I'm going to have the program.
What is 1 plus 2?
Then, depending on if their answer is correct or incorrect, they'll receive a different response.
What is 8 plus 4? Correct.
The first thing I'm going to do is set up the sprite to ask my questions. I could use any sprite that I want. I'm going to go down to my sprite library and choose a sprite that I think will be fun. Let's have Frank ask some questions. I'm going to remove my cat sprite since I'm going to use Frank today. Now that I have my character in place, let's start to add some code. To start off my game, I'm going to grab an event block. I'm going to grab when the green flag is clicked. Now I'm going to go down to a special category of blocks called the sensing blocks. You'll notice under the sensing blocks there's an ask and wait block. I'm going to grab that and I'm going to put in a question. In this case, my question is going to be a math question. What is 2 plus 2? Sensing blocks are special blocks that recognize keyboard or mouse movements, or they identify how objects interact with each other. In this case, the ask and wait block asks a question and then waits for a user response. Once Frank asks the question, the program is paused until the user enters something into this input box. Right now it doesn't matter what I enter here because there's no additional code telling the program what to do once it receives a response. That's our next step. In order to check our response and see if their answer to what is 2 plus 2 is correct, I'm going to use a different type of block. In this case, I'm going to use some conditional blocks. In coding, these are also called conditional statements. I have a couple different types of conditional blocks. These conditional blocks change the flow of the code based on if something is true or false. For instance, I can say, what is 2 plus 2, and have it check the answer. If the answer is correct, I can have the program give one response. If the answer is incorrect, I can have it give additional response. Let's see this in action. I'm going to use the if, then, else block. You'll notice there's a funny shape between the if and the then. If I go down to the operators category, you'll notice there are some blocks here that fit that perfectly. The one I'm going to look for today is the equal sign, because I want to see if the answer that my user puts in equals the correct answer, which is 4. I'm going to change the value in here to equals 4. Then I need something to check against. In this case, I'm going to go back to my sensing blocks, and I see this little bubble that says answer. This bubble actually represents a variable. You can think of a variable like a container that can store information. That information could be a word, it could be a number. In this case, the answer variable will hold whatever my user has input when I ask them this question. I'm going to put this answer bubble into the left side of this operator block. If I click the little check mark next to this, you'll notice on the screen I can see what answer is entered. Now I have to tell the computer what to do based on the answer. Maybe if they get the answer correct, I want it to say correct. I'm going to go under my looks and grab the say block. If the answer is 4, then say correct. And if the answer isn't correct, say wrong. Let's read through my code. When the green flag is clicked, ask, what is 2 plus 2, and wait. Check the answer input by the user and see if it equals 4. Then, if it equals 4, say correct for 2 seconds. Else, if it doesn't equal 4, say wrong for 2 seconds. Let's test. And now let's try a wrong answer. Our program is working as expected, and I can have all sorts of responses here. I can have movement, I can have sound. Let's test this out. And let's try a correct answer.
Yeah.
What if I want to do something like have a score for this game? The ask bubble is a variable, a container that holds a value. There are other variables that I can also create in Scratch. By default, I get a variable called my variable. If I want to change the name of that, I can right-click on it, click Rename, and give it a new name. Now I have a score variable. If I want to see it on the stage, I simply check the box next to it. If I want to hide it, I uncheck the box. In this case, I want the user to be able to see the score, so I'm going to keep it checked. In order to start my program, I want to set the score to 0 every time. So I'm going to grab this set score block, drag it under when green flag clicked, and now every time I start the game over, it'll start the score at 0. Then every time my user gets an answer correct, I want to change the score by 1. So I'm going to grab the change score block and drag it under say correct. Let's test this out.
Yeah.
I did notice that it took 2 seconds for the score to show up because I have this following my say correct block. If I change the order and drag it to the start, it'll change the score immediately, then play the sound, and then say correct for 2 seconds. Once I have all my code set up the way that I want it, I can add more questions for the program to ask. The simplest way to do this is to actually right-click on the first block that you want to copy and choose Duplicate. This will copy the block that you've clicked on as well as all blocks that follow it. Then I can simply drag it to the bottom and change the values. As I'm doing this, I want to make sure that the answer it's checking for is correct, so make sure to check your math. Now I'm starting to have a complete game. I can do things like add an opening sequence where it welcomes the user and maybe there's some sort of brief animation. I could add additional sounds. I could add a colorful background. I can add a win message when they reach a certain score. The options are endless.